Well, it be like that when it be like that, especially when it be like that. What's up, guys? Let me go with a pencil here, and here we are to do a breakdown and review of chapter 245, golly, of Jujutsu Kaisen, which of course is known as the decisive battle in the uninhabited demon-infested Shinjuku, part 17. 17. We're about to reach 2 volumes of this same chapter. I know, we had the interstitial fights in between. We had Takaba versus Kenjaku, which got whole new chapter titles that was a reference to some other anime. But come on now, dog. Like, does this even really... Are we still in the demon-infested Shinjuku right now? Sure, it's uninhabited, but like we are cut to an entirely different thing. But of course, the chapter ends with the return to the battle in the demon-infested, uninhabited Shinjuku. So I get it. And obviously, like, especially after rereading the series, Gay's always been lazy with chapter titles. I don't know what I expect. And you know what? If there's one thing I'll take a mangaka being lazy in, it's chapter titles. But of course, enough complaining about the chapter titles. Let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Editing me. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? The pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, I do happen to have this on me and keep this on me at all times. Look at that. Some lightning bolts. Wouldn't it be a shame if someone were to, I don't know, maybe confiscate this from me? Good thing that couldn't happen, though. Good thing that couldn't happen, though. Be a shame if a whole gaggle of individuals desperately needed me to lose my innate ability to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And rather, they took away one of the things that I happen to have on me and keep on me at all times. Wouldn't that just be a shame? A shame indeed. Good thing they can't happen that way, though, right? But with that being the case, let's actually hop into the battle, the decisive battle in the the decisive battle in the uninhabited demon-infested Shinjuku, part 17. We open up, cutting to a battle that I've been very excited to see, and I'm happy it didn't get off screen. There was like, in my heart of hearts, especially after we cut away from it, with absolutely no mention of it for 238 was when we got the start of this battle being built up to. Oh, no, even earlier, now I think about it. I think it was 237 is when this battle was introduced to actually be a battle. And now we're on 245. We had not seen a follow-up to this battle. Well, actually, no. When the domain broke in 238. That's the most recent time we seen it. So we hadn't seen an update to the battle in 7 chapters. So I was getting a little bit worried, especially since Gege's been kind of itchy with the off-screen finger recently. And these 2 characters are, don't get me wrong, I know Hakari is a fan favorite. Urume, much lesser so, especially in comparison to their contemporaries. Whether you like Kenjaku or Sukuna more, I know Urume is usually not in that conversation. Heck, even I don't like Urume more than Sukuna or Kenjaku. But I still like Urume, and I still like Hakari. But if I were to make a narrative weight tier list, they'd both be D tiers. Maybe C's if I'm feeling generous, especially since retroact. I mean, it's kind of weird thinking about it, because I guess Hakari is necessary, or else they wouldn't have gotten Kashima's alliance and the points from Kashima, and Kashima wouldn't have been there to force Sukuna to turn into his true form self, which is necessary because the loss of Tensha. Maybe, I'll give him B tiers. I'll give Hakari and Urume B tiers in terms of overall narrative importance, because of course they're somewhat drivers. The reason that Meguno was able to take over Megami so quickly is because of Urume. The reason Yuki had to step in and Kenjaku had to dip away is because Urume was coming in and Yuki had to save him. So Urume is definitely important enough, but nowhere near. I think Urume is a C tier and Hakari may be a B tier in terms of their overall narrative importance. So with Gege's recently itchy off-screen finger just preparing to launch at anybody, I was more than ready for us to just cut to this battle and either see Urume with their head on the ground or Hakari with their head on the ground. Either one was such a likely possibility that I was genuinely afraid, but I'm happy we get a glimpse of it. More than a glimpse, in fact. And this is a nice little soft confirmation. Gege never explicitly states that Hakari is in jackpot here. And notably, he never actually draws Hakari with the traditional jackpot aura, which I think is kind of a, not necessarily a mistake, but more a wasted opportunity, especially considering what this battle is. As we see, even the narrator, or whatever this is, says, fighting concurrently with the decisive battle against Sukuna, the feverish gambler Hakari Kinji versus the frozen star, Uraume. So this is a battle of the heat versus the one who removes heat. The fever versus the one who is so cold. The cold, the ice versus the burning fire. And what does Hakari Kinji's infinite curse energy aura look like? It looks like a massive ball of fire. Like, sure, it's curse energy fire, and we don't know what color it is just yet, but it looks like that. So the fact that we never get to see a hint of that in this chapter is a little disappointing, but once again, a lot happens in this chapter for both combatants, and plus there's the whole other half, the back half of the chapter, that has a whole bunch that needs to go into it. So if certain sacrifices need to be made, especially for like the background and stuff to get shown and just to save time, I understand why he's never drawn with the explosive aura. Though I think it would have worked well for this dynamic, and I'll give Gege credit. They do very explicitly explain that Jackpot Hakari is the one here, not only by what he ends up doing with, you know, the whole arm and stuff like that, and leg, but also with the music. You very specifically see, it's loose here, like, it's hard to tell with these, but, like, this is a music note, this is a music note, I believe. I can't tell if this looks like it's not a whole note, it's like a half note, but then again, I can't tell because of the, essentially, Gege does throw the music aura here, just in case you were unable to tell that, yes, this is Jackpot Hakari going up against Uraume. So, Hakari did get Jackpot in their little scuffle. However long you think Kajimo versus Sukuna took, Uraume did not do anything. This, once again, that's so weird. I wish we got to see that interaction, especially considering how Jackpot Hakari very clearly scales linearly to Uraume. I have no idea how Uraume didn't off that man in their domain. Well, not in their domain, in Hakari's domain. How? Was Uraume just like chilling? Were they just standing there like, Pachinko. I actually kind of like that. Go ahead, roll. Let's see what you can do. Like, how else did that happen? He must have had like a bunch of continuations and renewals built up or some, because based on how dirty Hakari gets done, especially early on in this chapter and even later on in it, base Hakari should have been absolutely nagged. They may feed into the idea that base Hakari and Jackpot Hakari are just the same stat-wise, just that Jackpot has infinite curse energy, which allows for automatic RCT. But I don't know. I don't fully buy that. But I can see why one would use the argument for that. Because otherwise, Hakari lasting as long as even Kajimo versus Sukuna was to get Jackpot, negative sense, unless Uraume was randomly holding back. However, we do get to see, sorry, I've been talking a whole bunch of preamble. We see that Uraume is like, I was separated from Sukuna-sama. And this is an interesting note. I want you to remember this. This is a secret tool that'll help us later, I swear, I can't do it. Sora, they've got me. Can I do it? It's me, Mickey Mouse. I can't do it. Gosh darn it, man. That's it. I need to listen to Mickey Mouse voice clips all over again. I'm going to watch 15 episodes of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse on loop for 5 days straight, just like I did when I was younger, taking care of my baby cousins. And I'm going to get that voice back. I swear. But with that being the case, this will be a secret tool that'll help us later. Remember that, Sora. This will be more of a tool than the Keyblade ever is. But remember that Uraume is annoyed that they were separated from Sukuna-sama, Lord Sukuna. However, I don't know. I mean, there is one slightly off panel, but I'm going to say this. As a person who has been quite critical of Gege's art as of recent, and does believe that Gege's art was much more consistent in like the Shibuya stretch of the narrative, and even the Culling games. Like, I'm trying to think. For majority of the Culling games, the art was good there too. I'm not sure what happened. I think it's literally like these back... It's like once we hit the 200s, things got a little bit shaky. But even then, Yuki versus Choso doesn't have any like standout, oh, that's kind of ugly looking panels. And I mean, Yorozu versus Maguna doesn't necessarily have, yeah, I don't know. Something about, it's just recent. I'm not even sure if I can say that Gege's art quality has been inconsistent throughout the entire manga, or even like as early as like Culling game stuff. Now, the art's been good. As critical as I've been, despite me never being able to be a mangaka, could not do it better. Hear me when I say this. I give critique only because I notice it, not because I could actually do better, or am blaming Gege for being a weekly mangaka and not being able to produce top-tier Horikoshi level art because Horikoshi is just actually a demon, or Murata level art because Murata is actually just a demon, or Record of Ragnarok mangaka. I need to learn their names. I need to genuinely learn their names. Record of Ragnarok level art because they're just demons. Like, not that. But no matter what, I gotta point this out. Every single time Uraume gets like a full panel or anything like that, or a decently sized image, Gege must just, hop in the kitchen, start chopping up the onions, start preparing the carrots, putting the beef in the steak. Like, I don't know, something about cooking. Because golly, Urume always looks fantastic. And one thing I do want to praise this chapter for a whole lot is the dynamic posing of, well, we'll get into more and more of it, but it's evident even in this first page. I love the posing that Gege gives the characters. They feel a lot more animated, despite them being still images, obviously. Like Urume with the left knee forward, the arm pointed out, the other fist gripped, it's just a solid pose, and the hair flowing in the wind, I love how the sleeves are different. You have the one white sleeve, the one black sleeve, representing the dichotomy of Urume. I love the sparkles around. Once again, Urume just consistently drawing like straight gas. I'm not sure. Gege definitely has favorites, all right? And Urume's got to be one of them because they always look majestic. And notably, we get into some interesting scaling stuff instantaneously. Number one, Jackpot Akari right here. This fella, this chill little guy right here. Well, he's not chill. He's actually quite feverish, if you will. But this fella right here looks at Urume, who hits him with a, and suddenly this just creates this massive ice construct. Frost Calm tags Jackpot Akari. Now, there are a couple things about this, which kind of makes it weird, but still interesting, but still weird. Notably, somehow, and I say somehow, because, sorry to assume Hikari's weight here, but he was looking a little extra thick in that color panel from 239, or 238. No, it was 239, I do believe. He's looking a little extra chonky. It's amazing to me that Urume somehow reaches the ground. Oh, one thing I do want to mention, how'd they get here? Were they dancing about for a little bit to reach this point? Because notably, Urume mentions that they were separated from Sukuna-sama. But like, unless like it was just a weird perspective thing and Hikari moved barrier coordinates like off screen, and like the big barrier shutter that we see that Yuji and Higuruma spawn next to and they come down with in their epic panel from the end of 238. Unless I'm missing something, they should not be in this like residential area. Unless they moved off screen. Like, I don't know. I have no idea. It's just weird because like they mentioned they're separated and they're in this residential area now when Sukuna leveled like a fat chunk of Shinjuku with Malevolent Shrine. Like a good chunk of that bad boy was destroyed. And they were in a city type area. So then to be suddenly in a residential area, a little bit interesting. I mean, I appreciate it because it allows for a more interesting battlefield. Like, I love MHA and Dragon Ball and whatever, as much as the next guy, but like big flat arenas aren't necessarily the most fun, and it's hard to portray like superhuman abilities and superhuman feats that I can actually comprehend with just flat arenas. So I'm happy that we do have this new locale. I just don't know how they got there. I'm just going to chalk it up to it being a perspective thing, because it seems like the start of their battle. However, we do get to see, back to the whole weight comment, how did Urume reach the ground, or at least a stable ground before Hikari did? Because like, they should have been level with each other. So the fact that Urume reaches the ground quicker, are they just like shockingly dense? Like, I know Yuji is dense for his size. Like, I think he weighs 80 kilograms, despite only being like 5'7", 5'8", which I know is weird, but he is that with like super low body fat. So like maybe Urume is a similar situation. How'd they reach the ground? That, or like the force was there, which is so much that they reached the ground first. And notably, this does tag Akari Kinji, and we see Frost Calm is a technique that freezes the target by striking them with supercooled cursed energy. It is the true essence of ice sorcery. So, this raises an interesting question. How warm is cursed energy? What's its temperature like? Because note, it doesn't say that the technique uses cursed energy to fuel the user's ability to manipulate supercooled air. It very particularly says Frost Calm is a technique that freezes the target by striking them with supercooled cursed energy. So like, Urume doesn't drain the heat out of the air to create ice, or even like spit out cold water, I guess. It doesn't whip cold water. When Urume whip, they're sending out supercooled cursed energy that kind of takes the form of ice, which isn't the first time we've seen cursed energy like mirror the aspects of elements, because we know Kashimo Hajime, he had an electric cursed energy type, an electric cursed energy trait. So his electricity, well, no, his cursed energy was always electrified. It led to a stun effect. It led to his immunity to Kamotoke. It led to a lot of things around Kashimo. But notably, that was an innate trait of his. It's not like he had to transform his curse energy into electricity. It just was that way. So what's the case with Urume? Because notably, this is apparently the true essence of ice sorcery. So like, what does that mean though? Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that Urume controls their cursed energy, which is normal temperature, but then lowers it through utilizing ice sorcery, which does create things like Frost Calm, which creates massive attacks that we're going to talk about in a second? Or is their cursed energy trait ice and they just whoop it out at other people? I don't know. Very, very interesting. Though admittedly, Hikari does not dodge this. And admittedly, this is kind of not his fault until we get to a weird thing later on in the chapter. Hikari, if you think he did, I know there are contentions whether or not Hikari actually like reacted to Kashimo's bolt, whether or not the bolt was always aimed at his shoulder and he just lost it. The reason people argue that is because he never reacts to a bolt again. They always hit exactly where Kashimo wants to hit them. Though admittedly there is only 2 more bolts used on Hikari after that. It's the one to his dome piece and it's the one through his torso. One that came from behind him and one that was from, I believe, a closer range than what Kashimo fired the first one from. But regardless, if you think that, then this feat isn't that impressive. But if you don't think that, and you think that Hikari genuinely did dodge Lightning Bolt, it's impressive that Urume, once again, weird speed feats. Weird speed for their technique. Just this, or a whip, whichever you think it is. That managed to tag and freeze a decent chunk of Hikari, which is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Notably, you can definitely chalk this up to what a lot of people who've been defending Maki better than I have in that case, have been chalking up Maki's whole thing to. Like, I still gas up, give a whole bunch of credit to, and slop off Urume immensely, and I mean immensely, for them being able to tag a post-Sakurajima Maki while looking at Maki dead in the face. But a lot of people have rationalized that to me by saying, well, think about it. No one knows the skill of Urume's ice techniques until they happen. And you can even see a perfect example of this here. When Urume hits him with the... This is very particularly just a... Like, there's no massive ice scale until the attack already hits. So maybe you could argue the reason Sakurajima Maki didn't properly react to it, despite being able to look up as Nue spawn, see... Well, actually, no, not even look up as Nue spawn. The lightning from Nue comes down, Maki looks up, raises the arms, and face tanks it. Meanwhile, they do get captured by Urume's ice technique. You could chalk that up to the fact that just the scale is completely different. Maki's able to react to things that are normally perceivable, but then when something has a massive explosion in girth and so... Why is it always girth? Why is it always... Why? Why is it always girth? It always comes back to girth. It's size, scale. There are other 5-letter words that reference the proportions of something. Why is it always girth? Sorry, this isn't your fault. It's me. Why is it always girth? I've been corrupted. I've been corrupted by the... Forget it. Regardless, maybe it's just a scale thing, where the reason Hikari and Maki, despite being pretty fast characters, were unable to react to Urume's techniques is because the starting size, the starting scale of the initial attack is fundamentally different from what the attack will actually result in. And you could even argue that maybe Urume was going to freeze all of Hikari, but only got their right side because Hikari was able to react slightly. Though you could make a pretty solid argument the whole reason Hikari wasn't able to dodge at all here is because he was in midair. Hikari can't move and do things in midair, right? He's not Maki or Toji. Remember that for later. And by later, I mean like 5 seconds. Because we see that Urume lunges in from their little podium that they found on this building and is like, hold on, allow me to give you the work. And they just run in, and with a left hand, now note, I'm not sure what Urume's dominant hand is, but we very particularly see them aim Frost Calm with their right, and I would well, who knows, 1,000 years of living and maybe they're ambidextrous, but we see Urume lunge in with the left and just boom, shatter their own ice construct. And now, admittedly, it's revealed that Urume is holding back to a certain degree, whether or not that's like, well, we know they don't use Curse Technique Lapse here. This is a normal Frost Calm. We've seen Curse Technique Lapse Urume. That's what tagged Maki. But interesting that Urume is able to casually shatter their own ice constructs and that Hikari's arm just gets pieced right off. Admittedly, this is still less impressive than Hikari losing his arm or his torso to Kashimo's bolts because of the fact that this is a 2-stage attack. This is Urume ceasing all the motion in Hikari's arm by draining out all the heat, essentially removing any energy that's active in there. So think of the arm being perfectly in place and then shattering it. It's a lot easier to break something that's frozen than something that's unfrozen. Why? I don't fully understand the physics behind that, and I'm too lazy to look them up. I'll be completely real with you. But it is easier to shatter. Actually, is it though? Yeah, I guess. Because you can't shatter water. It has to be solid. But I don't know. Regardless, people were doing a fantastic job explaining to me in the comments of the spoiler discussion on how, legally speaking, while this is still super impressive that Hikari did just flat out lose his arm to Uraume just casually punching their own ice construct, it isn't the craziest because ice makes things easier to shatter. I believe so. I forget the full mechanics behind that. But I think it has something to do with, like, the bonds between the molecules getting more fragile and stuff like that, and thusly Uraume being able to punch through it. Not all too crazy, but don't worry. We get a crazy Uraume feat later, which will make me bring back up the Kashimo scaling. But regardless, it is very impressive that Uraume is, 1, able to attack Hikari, and 2, able to shatter Hikari's body, even when it's under the influence of Uraume's ice, just because of how powerful Hikari is in Jackpot. Though, admittedly, the question is, how powerful is Hikari in Jackpot? Though we do get to see that Uraume drops one of the coldest, I was about to say one of the most fire, but one of the coldest bars in the entire series, when after shattering Hakari's arm and just assuming, yep, that man's cooked, they hit him with the two-handed, thanks for playing, and goes to spit at him again. But unfortunately for Uraume, they ain't do their research on a certain Akari Kinji. They immediately are shocked and bamboozled as this man, presumably, I'm not sure, it's hard to tell with this art style. I'm interested to see how the anime does it, like 10 years from now, because we are not seeing this. The Calling Games is most likely, it's a 5-game arc. Gojo versus Sukuna is probably not going to be until like season 4. And when did season 1 come out? I forget when season 1 came out, but like a while ago. And we're just reaching the end of season 2. So presumably we ain't gonna see this for like, we may see this by 2030. 2028 being generous, because next year's 2024. Assuming 2 years between each production. Maybe we'll get it 2028, maybe. But even then, that's highly unlikely. I'm leaning more towards 2029, 2030 before we actually get to this part animated. But the reason I bring this up is because I can't tell, is this Hikari's hand fully regrown, or is this his hand in terms of just like the musculature that's beneath? Like if you were to, for lack of a better term, tear your own skin off and look up underneath, there's like all the musculature and sinew there that holds your hand together. And the reason I think it's that is because you can see what looks like his traditional skin leaping up, chasing the rest of his hand, which implies that Hikari somehow in motion as his arm was regenerating sent the electrical signals to his hand to move forward, grab, and as we see, cold hard dunk Uraume through not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, but 7, maybe 8 separate stories of a residential building, which is absolutely insane. Like, golly. And speaking of why I mentioned it would only take 5 seconds to mention that Hikari couldn't dodge midair, how does he do this? Like, where did he get the momentum from? Like, I know Uraume did make the rookie move of getting in Hikari's face. Like, notably, they're like right on top of each other here. So maybe you can just argue Hikari reached out, like turned his torso, grabbed Uraume's arm, and then reeled back and then threw it down. But no, this seems like all one continuous motion. Hikari has a very weird thing about this, or similar to this later too, where he somehow just stays in motion, even though he should be locked in motion, but he grabs Uraume by the face, which has got to be, I don't know, it's something that is so disrespectful about being grabbed by the face. Not punched in the face, not kicked in the face. No, just someone just, and then throwing you, gotta be one of the most disrespectful things ever. Just in general, not even just in fiction, just in real life. You imagine you're fighting somebody and they consider you such a minimal threat that they completely ignore your fisticuffs, weave through it, grab your face, and just throw you to the ground. I would not only be hurt and probably have brain damage, but also I'd be disrespected. Golly. However, we do get to see Hikari does dunk Uraume straight through 7, possibly 8-story building. Though, once again, testament to Uraume's durability, not a lick of damage. This attack, despite being Hikari presumably using his full force in Jackpot to swing Urume with enough force to shatter 7, maybe 8 stories of ceilings and floors, ain't a lick of damage here. At all. Like, not even their clothes are ruffled. And we see that when clothes take damage, Gege's more than willing to draw it. So Urume just must be a bulky beast. It's not even like they defend themselves with ice or anything. No, they're just raw durability. Where's that mean covered? Raw durability. But like, just base stat line durability. Able to face tank or back tank, whichever direction you think they were thrown. Being thrown through numerous stories. Very, very impressive. Realize, admittedly, it's not the craziest thing. The only characters in JJK who've been like throwing people through numerous buildings with just like single impacts or throws are like Ryoma Tsukuna. And he was at 15 fingers and he sent Yuji through multiple buildings. And then Yuji himself, post-liberation, when he sent Sukuna through a building. And then like Gojo and Sukuna when they dove through buildings. No other characters really been trying to do that. Though admittedly, there are characters who should have higher output than Urume, like Ryu, who should be able to do the exact same thing. So while it isn't the craziest thing that Urume takes no damage, it is still pretty crazy that Urume takes absolutely no damage after being thrown by Jackpot Hikari as hard as he would most likely muster through numerous buildings. Though, speaking of Hikari Kinji, he gets something that he desperately needed, even though I still think he needs more, especially if he's going to contribute to the main battle after Urume versus Hikari, if he survives this battle, which is a question of itself. The speed of his regeneration is incredible. It surpasses even Sukuna-sama and Gojo Satoru. Whoa! 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 Wait a minute! Can we get a run back on this thing? Urume, can you say that once again for the crowd real quick? No problem. That guy with a pencil who cannot read. The speed of his regeneration is incredible. It even surpasses Sukuna-sama and Gojo Satoru. So, that's a pretty beefy statement right there. Now, admittedly, we don't really get too many fleets of Sukuna regenerating at massively hypersonic speeds. The only one that is really close for extreme speed regeneration that we can really note here is the one where he apparently... Okay, I'm not going to do that voice anymore. The only one that we really get from Sukuna in terms of like a crazy speed regeneration feat is what is transpiring. What is transpiring? One moment. But with that being the case, the one thingamajigger that we do get for Sukuna's insane regeneration speed is actually from him, like, how do I put this without making it sound weird? Remember when he got both his arms blown off? I was gonna try to put it in a way that sounded softer, but no. Remember when he had both of his arms blown off by the 200% hollow purple? He apparently lost both of his arms. We learned that retroactively. I thought he had only lost one arm, but no, apparently both of them bad boys were vaporized. But before Satoru Gojo could just teleport in front of him, before Gojo could clap his hands after launching the purple and Sukuna getting hit by it, Sukuna had already recovered a whole reinforced arm. So that's Sukuna's, in my opinion, most impressive regen feat. Like, he has some, but like, notably, he isn't even able to heal like a gaping chest wound quick enough that Gojo doesn't catch him in a limited void for 10 seconds. So like, his regeneration speed isn't the craziest, but the real impressive thing about this is that it's better than Gojo Satoru's. Remember, this is the same Gojo Satoru who would have perished if his regeneration speed was any slower in Malevolent Shrine. Realize that what Gojo was doing there, he wasn't just tanking the cleaves or dismantles. The cleaves were meant to tear straight through. It's just that he healed himself so quickly that the cleaves couldn't tear straight through his body like they were supposed to do. So the fact that Hikari's speed is considered superior to that, it's kind of been implied for the entire series, I will admit. Like, I even believed for a good period, I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but I may have not. I even believed that Hikari in Jackpot would be able to do the same thing that Gojo did in Malevolent Shrine, but it's going to have that hard confirmation, especially considering what I got to mention here. Hikari doesn't really have much on his own in terms of like unique strats, unique abilities, anything like that. Like, when you're looking in comparison to a lot of the other heavy hitters on the protagonist side or even on the antagonist side, Gojo Satoru, the Limitless plus the 6 Eyes. Of course, it's the most powerful curse technique combo in the entire series. And, well, I guess Shrine plus 10 Shadows ended up being more dangerous in the long run. But that was Shrine plus 10 Shadows plus Sukuna in particular. But Infinity well, the Limitless plus the 6 eyes. Insane combo. Crazy unique abilities, numerous during attacks, stuff like that. And obviously a limited void. For Yuta Okotsu, what makes him unique and special is not only his super strong Queen of Curse Shikigami Rika Orimoto, or at least the husk of it, but also his ability to unconditionally copy curse techniques as long as he understands them. Very, very unique. Geto Suguru, or Suguru Geto, or I guess Kenjaku, legally speaking, because he possessed Geto's body. Cursed spirit manipulation, the ability to wield endless armies of great power of cursed spirits who could possibly have their own unique techniques that you then have to deal with. For keep it on running, keep it on pushing. Maki Zenin and Toji Zenin, monsters, beasts, demons in of themselves. Maki just has the soul split katana and the basic heavenly restriction abilities, but that includes extreme speed, hopping off air, zero cursed energy detection, all the stuff like that. But even Toji has something like the inverted spear of heaven, which immediately turns off cursed techniques. For heck, even when I think about it, Sukuna himself, obviously he's just broken. But with that being the case, all that to say, for these characters who have super unique and crazy next level abilities, Hikari kind of needed something. He could just do what other people could do for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Very, very good and unlimitedly for 4 minutes and 11 seconds, but just regen isn't enough. Regen doesn't really provide, like, he's not like Andy from Undead Unluck, where he can like use his regeneration in unique or interesting ways to like create higher potency attacks or anything like that. No, he's just a sponge. Just a damage sponge. And ultimately, a damage sponge is cool and all. We would be worse off without the damage sponge, but it means he can't really do anything attack potency-wise or anything crazy. Like even Kashimo, in base, with no curse technique, has better utility in terms of offensive and arguably defensive potential with his cursed energy trait and his lightning bolts, which drastically exceed his own attack potency and seemingly have some sort of variation of Duraneg properties based on how they interact with Hikari. So Hikari getting a statement that his regen is better than even Sukuna and Gojo's, it's nice, but in my opinion, it's still not enough. He's going to need something more, whether it be that 777 jackpot that people have been theorizing about, whether it be like the ideas that I came up with, like a critical hit system, but then again, he would have had to have developed that. I don't think that's a thing. That was something I came up with just to add to him, because right now the regen isn't enough. And we even see that I talked about how this being a two-step combo, the Frost Calm into Punch, isn't too impressive in comparison to Kashimo, who kind of just had to have his bolt touch Hikari and then boom, it blew his arm off. This is pretty impressive. I've seen people talk about how maybe this isn't too impressive. It is if you don't think Hikari's jackpot durability get much higher, or if he throws away all reinforcement on the concept that he can heal. But I think we know he doesn't. He doesn't throw away all reinforcement, and we know that Kashimo's base attacks, in terms of like his punches and kicks, can't really do much to Hikari. Well, they can when Hikari's folding, but outside of that, Hikari is able to go relative and keep up and take hits from Kashimo's punches, and Kashimo's punches, even in base, are pretty impressive based on what they do to Hikari. But this ability of Urume just launching an ice spear, being able to tear straight through Hikari's guts, is still very, very impressive. Presumably he's not just standing there with no durability applied to his stomach. So the fact that the ice spear is able to tear straight on through is, once again, a pretty similar feat to Kashimo's lightning bolt. At least in my opinion. That's how I see it, because these are both just particular one-hit attacks. Of course, I've seen people say like, oh, well, the spear is pointy, so of course it's going to do more piercing damage. And yeah, that is true. But we've seen in Jujutsu Kaisen, like, if you're just weak enough, the sharpness of your weapon doesn't matter. Like, we literally, like, it was mentioned recently as last chapter. Miwa put a binding vow on her sharp as all get out katana to try and do something to Kenjaku. But, as we see, since Miwa was so fodder, Kenjaku just, nice idea. Anyway, Maximum Uzumaki. So, it is still a testament to Urume's ability, without freezing Hikari to like make him easier to shatter or anything like that, without doing any of that. The fact that this ice spear just tears straight on through him, pointy or not, it's pretty impressive. Once again, the only things that we've seen absolutely and instantaneously compromise Jackpot Hikari's durability aren't punches from Kashimo, aren't kicks from Kashimo. It's only Kashimo's bolts. Those were the things that were doing lethal damage to Hikari. So the fact that this does what would be lethal damage to Jackpot Hikari, good stuff. Though admittedly, once again, I wouldn't be mad if y'all just said, stop glazing Urume. And to that I say, no. Never. I'll be an Urume Glazer even once they are packed, because I presume they're going to get packed. I think we're going to see Akari versus Sukuna. I think that's too nice of a matchup to see in order for us to not see it. Though, admittedly, Urume does seem to be fighting a little bit unoptimally here. Because if you're going to do something like this, why not just aim for his head? Like, I get the head is a more narrow target, and by aiming for the torso, you are likely to cover a target more. Like, it's much easier to aim for the chest. I wouldn't even say the legs. It's much easier to just aim for the chest because it's one solid area versus the head, which, just look at, like, admittedly, my shoulders aren't that broad. But, like, look at me. Look at how much more surface area you'd have. Like you could put 2 other heads on the side of me and be able to hit those versus just the sheer spot if you were trying to hit my head. And the same thing goes for Akari here. But, like, Urume, especially since they acknowledge and recognize the speed of Akari's regeneration, should know this wouldn't work. So why not just aim for the one place that will most likely work? Remember, RCT was able to be shut off on Hazanoki, admittedly a much lesser RCT user than Hakari, but still an RCT user nonetheless. But just, like, piercing his neck, like Urume, if you're going to throw an Ice Spear, same for his dome piece. Just, especially if he's not going to dodge it, which I don't blame him for not dodging, since he would most likely try to regenerate from it. Just go for his dome piece. Just straight up aim for it. And once again, Hakari doesn't, like, fully just facing attacks. He does attempt to dodge and redirect and avoid when he can, so the fact that this is able to tag him, no issue, is a testament. Urume, if you would just aimed a little bit higher, if only you had gone for the head, you may have just wiped Akari here. Because presumably Akari is still a decapitation victim. Like most people. But, like, in terms of RCT, if you properly destroy Akari's head, all in one shot, like this would have appeared to have done, or at least just remove his head from his body, like aim for his neck, Urume, I think it could have gotten him. At least that's me, though. If I was Urume, I'd be aiming straight for headshots, because clearly the rest isn't going to work. If you're able to remove this man's arm, and before he can even begin to land or go anywhere, he's already grabbing you with said arm, and he's slamming you through buildings, I wouldn't be aiming for his chest, his torso. I wouldn't be aiming for nothing other than maybe his heart, and maybe his head. I do get, though, like, as much as I'm clowning on Urume for not aiming for the head, I get why they go for the stomach here, because that's where cursed energy is produced. So, like, maybe Akari has tricked Urume into believing, okay, maybe if I take out his gut, that's where all the infinite cursed energy is being reproduced or produced, then I'll be able to take him out. But clearly, that does not work. Though, once again, going into the discussion of Gege's art and the dynamism of the posing here, I love all the poses on this page. Once again, actually, let me see if I can do a little demonstration. I need a blank sketchbook. I have like 15 of those. Give me 1 second. Come here. Are you empty? You are not empty. God, where is a blank sketchbook? You know what? I'll just draw on the back on you. So, let me see. Let me take a look. Let me just find a blank page. Golly, what? You're telling me there's not a single blank page? I was about to say, perfect. I knew I had a blank page somewhere. But what I love about Gege's posing here is that it's so dramatic, so extra. For this pose right here, and I don't know how other artists do it, and don't do what I do. I am not conventionally trained. I'm not conventionally trained at all. I am not a professional artist in any way, shape, or form. Do not take anything I say for granted or as reference. But the way I do things, whenever I'm trying to design poses, is that I'll typically go by a line-by-line basis. So, like, hypothetically, speaking purely hypothetically, for a blank page, I want to draw this pose of Urume. How I would do it is I would go like this for the upper arm, like this. Then the shoulder line that we see right here. And then the arm crosses, the left arm crosses over their torso, which is a nice little detail. Once again, it goes into the dynamism of the pose, but that leads to a arm here. And then it's really sharp angle here now that I look at it. This is why I do love drawing Gege's art style, because it gives me pointers I can steal out of my art style. But with it being the case, then you draw the torso line, which is even tilted in of itself on a tilted axis, which is nice. Then the knee line, which wouldn't be too long because this is a more front-facing shot for the right leg. And then one more longer knee shot. Though admittedly, you do need like a bit of the hip, waist, torso line. But once again, I'm trying to do this quick and speedy so I can get to the point. But look at this. It's rough, but that's the basis of the pose for the throwing of the spear. But the way Gege does it, it adds a nice extra layer of shift to it. Like, hypothetically, if you want to just throw a spear, you could just pose like this. Once again, this will be super quick, super sloppy. So this will not be best pencil work. But this is like the more generic way that one would throw and aim a spear and stuff like that. And it easily could have been done, but I love how Gege goes out of the way to make a more complex pose that keeps the motion that Urume was in after being thrown. That's also how you could typically draw on the spear being thrown. Just stagnant stance, face forward, normal, with the arm extended for balance, and then the spear likely being lofted up here. But Gege very specifically goes for this more energetic and chaotic pose, which I think works. Once again, just little details. And the same thing is shown here. Look at the force. Look at the motion that's put behind the spear toss. I think it's why Gege has some of the most kinetic, and it's why the Sakamoto Days mangaka Suzuki Sensei? I'm pretty sure it's Suzuki Sensei. The Sakamoto Days mangaka and Gege are so good with their energy and seemingly capturing animation in still frames or motion in still frames. It's the angling that they always do, adding these extra details, pushing beyond what would be generic. Once again, for the throwing of a spear, like you could just go, I'm just going to erase this. Once again, this is a already used sketchbook, so it doesn't matter. But for the throwing of the spear, you could go, I haven't thrown a spear in forever, but you could go something like this, where it's just, once again, generic, you put no hip turn into it, it's just like a straight line, like the launch of the spear, or even the complete throwing of a spear, you do something like this. But Gege, once again, puts all that extra force behind it. You see the focus on Urume's face. You see the curl of the arm going forward based on how hard they threw the spear. You can tell they threw the spear extra hard because they're balancing on one foot. It's like they're about to topple over. The way their curls ruffle in the wind, their clothes ruffle in the wind. All of that adds these nice extra juicy layers. It makes the art stick with you more. It makes it feel more kinetic, which is very, very good. Especially when you're drawing manga and you're drawing an action manga in particular, you want your art to feel as kinetic as humanly possible, and this is in fact the way to do it. So of course, another good pose here is just Akari's pose when he takes the damage here. Once again, similar to the line thing. I'm not going to search through that entire book for another empty page, but follow the cursor. Line here, shoulder line here, arm line here. A very interesting twist of the torso here. It's implied by the fact that you can see like the front of his hoodie here, but this is his torso being torn through by the ice spear, and then the legs curving in this way. Once again, showing how hard he's running. Like typically when you're running, coming from a former track guy, you want to dive into it, especially if you're like, Hakari looks like he's basically leapt out the blocks here. He's sprinting full speed towards Urume. The driving of the arms here, perfect, wonderful. You can just do running like this. But you do, like, once again, if you're dramatizing it, you want to get all that kinetic motion in there. You want to put all that force, all that motion behind it. And I think Gege's fantastic at doing that. Him and Suzuki Sensei. And the record writer on mangaka from time to time. They're good with it too. But with that being the case, sorry, I went on a whole art diatribe. But I'm not gonna. I want to talk about art on and off, but it's usually critique. I do want to do more praising of Gege too, because like Gege's art style does get a lot of flack, from me included. So I want to be nice. With that being the case, I love how Akari's sprint isn't even interrupted by having his torso torn through. He just moved. Now I think about it, is that an art inconsistency? Hold on a second. No, okay, so he does keep it. I didn't. Once again, good attention to detail from Gege. But I do love how Akari Kinji merely smiles through the pain and lunges forward. And that's once again goes to show how Urume's cold ice does nothing to slow down the fever of Akari Kinji. It also shows just like Hakari must have been super duper used to taking damage, and or like he must be on cloud 9 or something when in jackpot, which we do kind of see. He is a little lost in the sauce when he's on jackpot. But the fact that he can have his whole torso ripped out and just not even flinch, very impressive. We see Gojo and Sukuna, the other two strongest and likely fastest RCT users in the verse, even they stagger a little bit after they get hit by big major attacks. Sukuna When Gojo buries his fist into his chest and he's forced to heal that gaping chest wound, he does have pause. He spits up. He's like, ugh, hold on a second. Let me recuperate. That's why he was late in activating his domain later. For even Gojo, when he lost that arm, he didn't immediately regenerate it and just keep fighting. He was shocked. The arm was gone. He was knocked back. He started getting staggered and pushed. But Hikari, due to the fast regeneration speed and most likely the euphoria being on Cloud 9 from Jackpot and or just his own willpower and determination, he runs right through it. He doesn't even have human reactions anymore to what should be lethal and extreme pain, which is very impressive. I like it a whole lot. Once again, little layers to Hikari's character, and it shows why he's different, and it's why Urume likely notices the inhumanity that Hikari seems to have from his extreme fever, the passion, the need to keep on moving forward. And we see that Urume even acknowledges, it just keeps coming. This is not the first time that Urume has used this sequence of words in reference to a powerful sorcerer, if you know what I'm saying. It's when they first encountered Sukuna and they started fighting a little bit, and then Sukuna realized they were a good cook, and then they teamed up. What else did you possibly fathom that I meant when I said Urume's heard that exact sequence of words before? Or I said that exact sequence of words before? Nothing bad, right? I'm kidding, I don't blame you. I think the whole fandom knows. But with that being the case, we do see there actually is a little tiny bit of damage. Where this damage comes from is kind of weird though. Like is this just a mark? I feel like it's dirt or something, because I have no idea. Maybe it's Akari's life juice or something, because like he just grabbed her face. I'm like, it's not like Akari's nails are sharp or anything. I have no idea where this damage came from. Because remember, they were thrown backwards through the building. It's not like Hikari like grabbed them by the back of the head and threw them face first. They were thrown into the back of the building. So somehow Urume either took damage, or this is just like remaining life juice from Hikari. And we see, once again, testament to Hikari's strength, yet Urume's reaction speed and their own strength. These kicks that were able to like send base Kanshimo flying, even the standing kicks that were able to, knock him around and do some decent damage, the ones that Kanshimo believed he couldn't just tank if he ran out of cursed energy or if he turned his cursed energy off. Urume eats the kick that was built up with pretty good motion. Like Hikari runs into this kick, and not only do they react and block it, but they freeze the darn leg all in one smooth motion, which is very, very impressive. If you think Jackpot Hikari is very, very impressive. If you don't think Jackpot Hikari is very, very impressive, then this means nothing. But it's still very impressive, to me at least, that Urume was able to block, freeze, and kill all the motion of this, to the point where there's not even a single motion line on here. Though once again, it gets into the weird stuff about Hikari and how he's able to like build up and use momentum, or how much force he moves with. Because notably, we see that Hikari, I guess, I can't tell because the paneling and compositing here is a little bit weird, but he grins. Urume realizes something, and then the leg Urume's holding is now seemingly, I'm not sure what these onomatopoeia is when you say a sound that means a word, or no, a word that means a sound, like boom, bang, kaboom. What is it called? These SFX. I'm not sure what these SFX mean, but it seems like what I thought happened at first when I read the raws. I thought Hikari just like kicked, or no, the body heat of Hikari was so high from the constant RCT, and it could feel itself getting damaged, that it heated up so much that it tore straight on through. But no, with the actual chapter here now, I can see that Hikari's leg was torn off. Presumably, it's like from here, like from his ankle up, or maybe a bit higher than his ankle, to where these pants leg get cut off. His whole leg was generally frozen. It seems like he broke his own leg through the ice and then somehow kicked Urume in the face. Once again, double dunking. Though admittedly, this one does seem to do some damage to Urume because we see some life droplets come out of their mouth. At least that's what I think they are. These may just be dirt, because Hikari's feet are probably kind of nasty, or impact marks, but regardless, there is actually a little bit of damage done here. And boom! We see the J gets launched off. And actually, no, it is relatively high. So I think, like, maybe from, like, here up, Hikari's leg was frozen, but he just broke it off. Once again, super duper metal. I don't see Ryomen Suga, well, he tore off his finger, but I don't see him ripping off a whole leg and beating somebody else with it. But with that being the case, we see the J roll, but not get damaged or frozen. The J's are sacred, so you cannot damage or freeze them. But we see the J roll as boom, boom, boom. Once again, I think that's one 2, 3, maybe even 4 walls that Urume gets absolutely slammed through. Very compute. Don't do this to me. Don't. We were doing so good, compute. Compute, do not make me ban you to floor jail. I will do it. You calm down, darn you. You calm down, darn you. Don't you do this. Why? Why must you hurt me like this? The pain and agony you caused me is unbelievable and beyond respite. Or respite. I hate that respite is actually pronounced respite. Like there's an E there. Why can't you let me say respite? But with that being the case, we see that Hakari slams Urume through numerous buildings again. Though admittedly, once again, it just seems to do like little to no damage. Like more of the damage came from Akari's base kick, maybe, which he somehow does. I still have no idea how he does this. Like his leg is frozen, yet he somehow builds up the momentum with the new leg that is not the old leg, and the leg that was on the ground to somehow build up enough force to kick Urume through numerous buildings. But we see the man is one of materialism, as he says, there's my shoe. Hallelujah. These J's, they're too limited edition. I can't sack these. And we see that as he, presumably, like, I'm not sure if his foot is actually, his original foot, is actually contained in here. He just took his shoe off his foot, which sounds simple. Remember, that's his amputated foot that he's ripped his own shoe off of and slid back on. Ew! And he's most likely barefoot in that thing now, unless he took the sock off too, which makes it even worse. But we see that Urume is like, well. 1,000 years of experience, but it seems I can still make mistakes. The sources of the modern era. I may have misjudged you. Your fellow ilk have an intense obsession with remaining human. So desperately to hold on to their humanity that they're constantly telling themselves to hold back from destroying what would be easily crushed with their overwhelming power. That's it, you're being banished to floor jail, is what I would say if I could banish you to floor jail. I have learned my lesson. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it. I'm sorry. Compute. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to banish you to floor jail. But it sounded like you were calming down for a second, but no, you still refuse to do me that sweet favor of calming down. But that being the case, since I can no longer banish Computer-chan to floor jail, I do like this. Little things. What does Urume say? The sorcerers of this modern era hold themselves back from destroying what would be so easily crushed with their what? With their Urume, what's the, tell me, Urume, what's the adjective that you use there? Overwhelming power. Urume recognizes the strength of modern sorcerers. I know it's a weird minor thing to get caught up on or hold out on, but I like that. I like that Urume has the respect for them. Even if, this is most likely a subconscious statement. They probably don't even realize what they're saying here, considering they're locked into the battle. But they see the power of modern sorcerers and do believe to some certain degree it is overwhelming. They are mighty. It's something that Sukuna admits from time to time a little bit, because he obviously respects Satoru Gojo. Maybe not Kashiro, and Kashiro's not from the modern era. But it's interesting that Urume, who's only had interactions with what? Jujutsu High and Yuki and Hakari, they recognize that the modern sorcerers themselves do have overwhelming power. It's very, very neat. I like that little detail. It goes to show that Urume does have some sort of respect, even no matter how condescending they may be to them, talking about and insulting their desire to want and hold on to their humanity. In the end, they do still respect that they are powerful. They have the potential to crush almost anything in their way. And I have to presume this reference, or this diss in particular, very particularly goes to Satoru Gojo, who is also sentimental and wanted to preserve Megami at all, instead of simply tearing their master Sukuna limb from limb. Very, very interesting. But remember, who knows how long ago, what I mentioned about how he had a little secret mouse tool that would help us later. It is that human fear of being alone that makes them weak. Now, remember that little mouse tool from a long time ago? Interesting how Urume is a walking, talking hypocrite. Because what is their first concern at the start of this battle with Hakari Kinji? I was separated from Sukuna-sama. That sounds like someone who's a little bit worried about being alone. And yeah, as me, that sounds like someone was a little bit worried about being alone. What you mean you was separated? I mean, sure you were. Like, legally speaking, you were. But like, what does that matter, dog? Ain't you inhuman? Don't you not have a fear of being lonely? So why are you worried about being separated from Sukuna? That contradiction in your philosophy, it intrigues me. Uraume, tell me, why do you believe that you need to worry about Sukuna's location? Don't you have faith? Don't you understand that being alone is fine? Don't you, in a similar vein to Satoru Gojo, realize that just being with others holds you back? So why are you worried about the location of Sukuna? I think that is a purposeful contradiction built in by Gege. The fact that Uraume, arguably the most loyal character in the entire series, they lived, fought, prepared for 1,000 years for the return of their master. They view the human need and desire and want to be with other people as weakness. Interesting. That contradiction. I like it. Once again, it makes Uraume a character who has even less overall screen time than Kenjaku and Sukuna more and more interesting to me. I know I keep saying I want backstories for so many different characters, but I really want a backstory for Uraume. I want to know where they got this philosophy from, if it was just being with Sukuna, and I want to know how they met Sukuna and how they view Sukuna. Because maybe they don't consider this a contradiction in their own logic. One, because they're so blindly following Sukuna. And two, because Sukuna is barely human, in a sense. He's transcended humanity. He's much more a deity than a human. Interesting. But with that being the case, we see that Uraume ended up freezing, as Hikari mentions. They froze the water pipes, caused them to burst. Impressive. So with that, they burst the water pipes and caused everything to rain down. Though admittedly, this is a crazy amount of bursting that does. And I guess they just froze specific sections because the water erupts like geysers. And notably, once again, Uraume, in a similar vein to Sukuna himself, does actually give a little bit of respect out. As they make this statement talking about the weakness of connections and desires for humanity of the modern sorcerers of this foolish modern era, they say this: but you are different. You do not share their fear. I will no longer think of you as human. So that's interesting. Once again, this goes into a question of, does Uraume hold back on humans because they feel pity for them? Or because they aren't worthy of their full strength? And it's interesting that of this very limited interaction, remember, this is the first time that these two characters have ever crossed paths. The first time they meet face to face is specifically within 238 when Uraume falls down and delivers Kamutoke, and Hikari shows up with IDG, Idle Death, and ends up setting up his jackpot. That's the first time they meet. So if this little interaction, seeing Hikari recklessly dive through damage and what should be lethal attacks, it allows Uraume to see Hikari as something elevated, something not human. And the reason I specifically say elevated, because you may be wondering, well, what about this implies elevation? Maybe it's just that Uraume views Hikari as lesser than human for their lack of reaction. But I think this is a sense of respect, because Uraume very specifically knows Hikari as different from modern sorcerers who are desiring to be human and calls them weak. But Hikari isn't weak because he's able to transcend that human barrier. And once again, I wonder if that ability to dive through damage, not care for one's own well-being, and transcend the worries of the flesh, I wonder if Uraume, in a way, finds Sukuna just a little bit human. Because Sukuna was staggered, Sukuna was humbled, Sukuna was weakened by damage and pain, wasn't able to just charge straight through that. So I wonder, once again going into the idea of the hypocrisy behind Uraume and their ideology and their statements, I wonder, do they themselves worry about their own master being human? Interesting. However, of course, we get to see with this declaration of Hikari not being human anymore and being something more transcendental, it requires Uraume to declare, I will destroy you with the full extent of my power. Power from Chainsaw Man? No, I'm kidding. But with that being the case, Uraume does seem to activate something. I'm not sure, though. Like, there's no statement of domain expansion here, like, anywhere. I've seen people calling this a domain expansion, but, like, I don't know. Usually we get the name here, but I don't see it listed anywhere. Maybe we'll get that in the official translations. But Uraume uses all this water that bursts up to form a domain, which is going to be very, very interesting to see in action. Seeing Hikari, we may finally get to see that statement that was in only the Japan release. A statement about Hikari's IDG, Idle Death Gamble domain, is that it's very good in domain clashes. And we don't know how much time has passed with Hikari's jackpot here, but he's most likely going to need to re-up, especially if he's going to be experiencing domain. So we may finally get to see Whoa. No! I have to hurry this up. We may actually, sorry, my phone's about to die, but we may actually get to see IDG use, like it's another domain. Because Kashimo didn't have one, Charles didn't have one, and obviously Akari didn't fight Sukuna yet. So we may actually get to see IDG in a domain battle. It's going to be super duper interesting. However, we get into the idea of Akari, ironically enough, seemingly accepting his little spout, his little bit of inhumanity, as he declares, everyone's always talking. Hold on, I need to take a sip. I need to give Hikari a more gruff voice. Squimdaliumptious. Everybody's talking about humanity. Is it trending or something? I'll be real with you. I got finished just hearing the same thing from my junior, Lil Kohai. He's a bit of a gloomy kid, but he's a man who sticks to his word. You can't help but respect him. And you know what? I'm getting real hyped up here. Bring me an ice cold one. So, it's interesting that Hikari, once again, a man who is bound by the temptations of the flesh, bound by the material world, in the sense that he could not sacrifice the Jays. He needed to bring the Jays back on. Though he is getting them wet. Hikari, the Jays are getting wet. You need to leave. But with that being the case, despite someone who has love, he has these material connections. He has these people that he does worry, care about, and respect. These other humans. In a way, he still doesn't actually see the whole importance of humanity. The reasoning behind why Yuta and Kocho and all the others put so much precedent on it. And he kind of just sees them as blathering on. Ah, yeah, humanity this, humanity that. How about you humanity these? Now, let me stop. But with that being the case, that's interesting. Very, very interesting. That Akari Kinji himself does not see the value in humanity, which does kind of line up with Urume's assessment of, which is interesting. Once again, Hikari and Urume are two characters who are the sidest of side characters. Powerhouses in their own right, don't get me wrong, but clearly the sidest of side. But them having such interesting philosophies, especially in comparison to their fellow contemporaries, very, very interesting. Urume for the contradictions in their philosophy, shown by their loyalty to Sukuna, and Hikari for the contradictions in his philosophy relative to his very own friends and allies. And while this is, I don't know, I'm not sure what it is about this panel. Something about this panel feels weird about it. I'm not sure. I think it's maybe just a lack of detailing on this arm or something with the pen. I don't know. Something about this panel feels weird. I think it's the shape. There's a side-by-side comparison of this panel and his continuation panel from the Kashimo fight, and I'm going to have to break that down. I want to talk about Gege's art style in its own video and how I feel like at times it's deteriorated, but at times it hits these same peaks and pinnacles that it has always had. So I don't know. You know, things just get different priority. But with that being the case, we see Urume lock in, and we cut away from this battle. So I can finally stop yawning about Hikari versus Urume. Sorry, you couldn't tell by how long I've been talking about it. I really, really like it. But we cut over back to the main decisive battle in the Demon-Infested Shinjuku, Part 17, as we see Judgment declare. Yuji Itadori is accused under suspicion of committing mass execution in Shibuya on October 31st, 2018. So once again, this is bringing up the old case. Funny enough, Gege did forget to draw the binds around Judge Man's eyes here. You know, when you're a weekly mangaka, some things are going to get lost in the sauce. And we see this. Now, you want to talk about iconic trios. This is an iconic trio right here. Ryomen Sukuna, hands on his hips. Kamutoke in hand. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. I want you to look at it. But Kamutoke in hand. Pay attention to this bad boy. And his lower arms crossed. I love the little detail. He's such a sassy little fella. He's just a silly little guy. But we see that Higuruma comes to Itadori Yuji's defense. And I still want to know more about these, like, flesh apparitions on Yuji's arms. What are these? But we see that Higuruma declares... Let me take another sip, because Higuruma's voice is relatively deep. He didn't slaughter anyone. His previous confession in high court was false, motivated by a strong sense of personal accountability. The real culprit is you, Ryomen Sukuna. And then, so that's the initial flip, right? Because what essentially Higuruma is doing here is redirecting Judge Man's attention and who would get a guilty verdict over to Sukuna, despite Itadori being the one being charged. Essentially, if I had to think of a comparison, imagine you were under arrest and you were being put in a court case and you had a co-defendant. That's what Higuruma is doing. But instead of charging both people guilty, what essentially Higuruma is doing here, he's not making Itadori an accomplice to Sukuna, he's making him one of the victims, essentially removing him from the charges. That's what's happening here. That's likely why he goes with this opening statement. But seemingly as what I thought would be a stall tactic or maybe some sort of binding vow, Higuruma does begin to explain. Judge Man knows everything there is to know about the individuals within my domain. However, apart from the evidence within this envelope, none of it is shared with me. The sentencing is based on the claims asserted by the three of us. So this is the same hardline thing he told Yuji, except of course it was 2 rather than 3. And Higuruma goes on an internal monologue as he declares, "Good. The evidence given by Judge Man concerns Sukuna while he was inside of Yuji, just as the previous trials did. The details and the facts surrounding him taking control of Itadori's body and his cruel acts are all well documented." So, Judge Man knows Sukuna's backstory. Judge Man, you mind whispering that into my ear, big bro? Go ahead, just tell me. Preferably with like a 20 chapter manga arc. Just tell me, bro. You wouldn't just skip out on all that because Sukuna immediately snitches on himself, would you? Come on, Judge Man. You know you want to give it to me. Come on, Judge Man. Come on, Judge Man. What are you doing? Judge Man, what do you mean you're gonna take away something? But like I said, remember, Kabutoke's on him, and we see. I think this is only a retrospect thing. I wouldn't have noticed this on my first read through, but knowing what happens, it's so funny how bored Sukuna looks here. He went from and we see when he looks excited, but his eyes are just, they're half lidded. He's bored. He's annoyed. And I'm just saying, right here in this monologue, Maki, he could have shown up. As Sukuna was all distracted and falling asleep from the boredom, could have shown up with SSK and just the dome piece right off. I'm just saying, it could have happened. A lot of people said it was too quick, but it could have happened. Higuruma goes on for a sentence or two here. So if Maki just appeared right outside the domain, walked in, boop, series over. But of course, that can't happen just yet. We don't even know where. No. Oh wait, there we go. We don't even know where Maki Zenin is. Seriously, I don't know. I'm gonna have to make a Maki's missing video because we seriously have not seen her. But with it being the case, Higuruma's getting hopeful, right? Because it seems like the perfect scenario. They got Sukuna in the domain. Sukuna has the same details as before. Judge Man is allowing this retrial to happen with the 3-man. Like, everything seems to be going good. And we see that, hey, Judge Man doesn't even call out the one contradiction I think Judge Man would call out. That, well, Ryomen Sukuna is not his real name. It's a title that he was given. So, like, you can't really call him Ryomen Sukuna. You need to call him by his real name, and or that's not Ryomen Sukuna. If you want to go with Ryomen Sukuna as his real name, that's Megumi Fushiguro. Just like Itadori Yuji was accused with the mass execution, even though it was Ryomen Sukuna in control, Judge Man recognized Itadori Yuji as the base body, and the body is what matters, is the body is the soul. So I thought Judge Man was going to call Higuruma out on a contradiction that it was Megumi Fushiguro, not Ryomen Sukuna, or whatever Ryomen Sukuna's real name is. But with this being the case, it looks way too good. As Higuruma mentions, the Shibuya massacre only made possible because of Sukuna's immense skill in wielding Jujutsu. As long as Sukuna isn't judged to have been mentally unsound at the time of the incident, or to have a mental deterioration such that he can no longer be charged criminally, we should be able to secure a DS from Nintendo with this evidence. This evidence is not necessarily incriminating, but Higuruma, he underestimated Sukuna in one cruel, sick, and twisted way. He thought Sukuna would not want a little something. He thought Sukuna wouldn't want a little spice with his meal. A little bit of flavor, if you will. As we see, Sukuna cuts Higuruma off in the midst of his explanation. Don't be so long-winded. I already heard the rules of this domain when I was inside that brat. What I'm interested in is that sword of yours. I couldn't care less about what I did or when I did it. Let's hurry up and end this. Sukuna did not care less. He was like, forget about it. Quit all anything happening. Let's just get the money rolling. Go ahead. Draw that blade on me, big bro. Draw it on me. That's wild. I thought it was a little bit weird that Higuruma and Itadori were actually able to do anything to Sukuna, but now it all makes sense. Now 244, it actually makes genuine, real, proper, liquid sense, because what initially seemed like, oh, well, that's kind of weird. How did Higuruma, someone who's struggling to tag cursed energyless Yuji, suddenly leap up to be able to grab and pull on and actually redirect Sukuna's arm and stuff like that? When even Kashimo when Kashimo was in Phantom Beast Amber, couldn't make Sukuna flinch. It threw all the scaling out of whack, caused me a massive headache. I know people are I've seen people use it. The idea that, oh, well, sorcerers grow non-linearly, so maybe Higuruma got massive amps, he had a bunch of great training partners. I was like, no, that's kind of crazy. But now it all makes sense. Sukuna was willing. He was actually excited to get trapped in Higuruma's domain, just so he could get to the Executioner's Blade. But Higuruma explained the basic rules, just got Sukuna bored, and he was just like, come on now. Give it to me. You know I want it. You know what I'm here for. Bring it to me. So, that's a little bit crazy. And speaking of crazy, why did Judge Man do this? Like, sure, it still goes guilty, confiscation, and the death penalty. But like, why did it do the rock meme? Where it went, boom, like, it'd be so stupid. You know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm sorry, editing me. But I need to do this for the greater good. But why did Judge Man literally hit the... Oh, wait. Why do you really hit the... Or the... Oh, shoot. No, you died. The Googler, no. The Googler was sacrificed. I'm sorry, Googler. I didn't mean to do this to you. Please, Googler, come back. Googler, come back. Nah, but why did he really hit that? I have no idea. Like, it didn't even do this during Yuji. Like, it literally tears the cords that are sealing its eyes shut. Because, Justice is supposed to be blind. I have no idea why. Is it because Sukuna interrupted the explanation? I don't know. We'll probably never find out. It's just kind of funny to me because it does remind me of the rock meme of... That's it. Though we do get to see, once again, Sukuna goes from bored to excited. A big old grin on his face as confiscation and the DP occurs. But I do want you to notice something. Kamutoge, which was being wielded in his right hand. After confiscation and the DP occurs, what happened to it? Where did Kamutoge go? What could have transpired in this moment for the King of Curses? I truly do wonder what could have transpired. And we see that they land from deadly sentencing. Sukuna, bored as ever, lower arms still crossed, Chadley as all can be, as his upper arms relax. We see Itadori Yuji land and Higuruma land. And suddenly we see the hammer of justice, the divine gavel, if you will, cause Sukuna to burst into a wide grin as the executioner's sword is born once again. And we see Higuruma posted up in this epic panel as he declares, "Executioner's sword. It is likely that Sukuna lost the ability to use the Ten Shadows technique in his battle with Satoru Gojo." Bold claim. Bold assumption. But admittedly, most of the fandom's gone with that, so I guess. I mean, sure, I don't really care. But he doesn't need it, obviously. I mean, I would have liked to see, like, a Giga Totality, like, Rapid Escape, fused with Maharaga would have gone crazy. But, with that being the case, they assume the 10 Shadows are taken. Bold assumption, but this whole battle was a bunch of bold assumptions. As we see, he also says, there's a high possibility. He does say what a high possibility, but he says, there's a high possibility that what was confiscated was his shrine. Assuming Sukuna cannot use any curse technique, I'm in complete control with this lethal sword. You want to talk about bold assumption. Higuruma, my B-O-Y. Boy, if you don't get your dumb bubble, like, did y'all not watch the fight? Whether it be the battle that he had with Gojo Satoru, where it ain't, okay, Billy, if you think curse energy reinforcement of the base body does not matter, then fine, whatever. 20-finger Sukuna in Megumi's body is the same stats as 20-finger Sukuna in the main body, but regardless, did you not see the battle with Satoru Gojo, where he was able to fully keep up with that strongest sorcerer who could perception blitz every last one of y'all? Physically, he was able to do that with no blue reinforcing his speed or nothing, plus his own little precog. And then you mean to tell me you watch Phantom Beast Amber, Mythical Beast Amber, and B.A. Kashimo? He got his master and business associates. With that being the case, did you not see Mythical Beast Amber Kashimo getting absolute perception blitz? No curse technique or nothing? Golly gee willikers, fellers. What did you think? And notably, he did not even mention Kamitoke, as if that weapon, if he didn't expect it to be taken, he did not even mention Kamitoke as a possibility, even though he saw that lightning blast that could have struck Higuruma down. Why did he believe he's in control of this battle when all he's going to be is a victim? Could the court please answer me that? It's okay if you can't, because there ain't no reason. Higuruma, you got a little bit too confident, my brother. And thusly, I'm going to say you made a mistake. And we see that with this being established, everyone realized that now's the time. If there's any time to do something, it's right now. Because we see they could not afford to let this shot at victory slip through their fingers. The sorcerers of Jujutsu High sprang into action. We got Ito. Wonder what beast he's wielding. Because remember, he has a variation, not of a seance technique, but a possession technique where he wields multiple things. There's some data book statement about no one being able to survive Ryu, supposedly. And then we got Choso. Anyone else spelling character development? But he's pulling up. We got Kusakabe, who's so serious, he immediately spits out the stick. It's ready. But we see that maybe Higuruma realizes the mistake he's made. Just maybe. As a question rings through his mind. Do you have a death wish, Higuruma? And we see the wise man notices something in this moment. The only ones who realized that something was amiss with this seemingly golden opportunity were Sukuna and Higuruma himself. We got Ino posted up behind Sukuna, Kusakabe posted up next to Higuruma, and Choso posted up next to Itadori. A few missing characters here. Maki, Momo, Miwa, and Inumaki. And Panda. Come on, Panda. Come to the battlefield, man. Sukuna needs a protein snack. Please, Panda, show up. I want you to be consumed, so you can finally rid us of your disgusting presence, your absolute insult to existence itself. I despise you and everything you stand for. You filth. But with that being the case, almost everyone pulls up. This is in all the sources of Jujutsu High, so that's interesting, for one. And for two, look at these beautiful boys right here. These beautiful boys right here start tearing into them. And in my spoiler discussion, I was hopeful. I believed that Gege would be kind. What I believed was that these slashes, the reason they seemed perceivable, and the reason they didn't do too much damage to Kusakabe and Higuruma, in spite of Kusakabe seemingly not using Simple Domain here, though it actually does look like he is using Simple Domain. That's the thing, he takes the pose for it, but like, you don't see the Simple Domain barrier, but that may just be like a background thing. I assume he's using Simple Domain here. That's probably why the cuts are so shallow. But I thought happened here was that Sukuna just swung Kamutoke really, really hard. I thought he had just sent air blasts out. Like, obviously he's extremely powerful, so it wouldn't have shocked me if he could just swing the sword hard enough to send air blasts flying. But no. Gege's not that kind. As we see, Higuruma and everyone else miscalculated. As in the case of the target of confiscation being someone currently wielding a cursed tool, what would be seized is not the cursed technique, but the tool itself. Sukuna's concealed deluge of slashes rains down upon them. So yeah, I'm assuming every time we see these slashes, it's just for us. It's for visual effect. It's not, the characters can't see them. I still don't think Kashimo can see the swings of Sukuna slashes. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I don't think so. Me personally. That is just me though. But with that being the case, as shown, Kamutoke was sacrificed just like that. So a couple things here. Number one, It's clear that Kabutoke was introduced mostly as a plot. I mean, who knows? Maybe he'll get it back once he executes Higuruma, because Higuruma is going to get cooked, presumably. But Kabutoke was very clearly introduced just so this mechanic could be used to save Sukuna. I will admit, I don't want to chalk this up purely to plot armor. It is somewhat established that Higuruma is very inexperienced. He's lucky, he's a prodigy, but he has not run into that many people with the amount of points I believed he had. I think he had like a bit over 100, like 105, maybe 110. So at most, he ran into like 22 sorcerers. That could have been a whole bunch of random modern fodder. Obviously, Higuruma himself is still decently powerful. He's grade 1 level, but he clearly didn't run into any special grades. He very unlikely ran into someone with a cursed tool like Kabutoke, so he never got to deal with confiscation. We already know confiscation has some weird rules with it, where if a target doesn't have a cursed technique, it'll just take away their cursed energy control. So we already knew confiscation had unique barriers. Number 3, we did know that this was a gamble in of itself. Like, they didn't know how this was going to work. Heck, Higuruma even makes the bold assumption that Ten Shadows was just lost, when realistically, they have no predilection to assume one way or another. It's a 50-50. So I get why Higuruma says it's likely, but still, that was obviously a gamble in of itself. He could have just dropped Divine Dogs on their head if he really felt like it. But top that off with the idea that, well, it kind of does make sense. Kabutoke is a cursed tool that does be cursed tooling. So, of course, it would end up being the one that is left behind. Or taken away, essentially. Left behind is kind of inaccurate, but taken away. Because it's a cursed tool with a cursed technique. I know why some people are mad at this, because, like, why wouldn't, if the case of Sukuna versus Shibuya is supposed to be guilty, why not take away the weapon he used in Shibuya? I get that logic, but, like, still, it's confiscation. Taking away something, and something tangible being taken away, like a cursed tool, makes sense that it's imbued with a cursed technique, and that still ties into the whole idea of taking away something cursed energy specific. So yeah, I do feel like Kabutoke was kind of introduced just for that, though. That's my one critique, because he doesn't get the spear back. He only gets Kabutoke back, which makes sense. Yorozu could most likely only reproduce one thing. But realize, Kabutoke does nothing for Sukuna, except this. Like a smokescreen for Kashimo. Because Kashimo takes no damage from it. He doesn't use it against Gojo, because he doesn't get it until after the Gojo fight. And before he can use it on anybody here, it's taken away. Kabutoke is very specifically reintroduced just for this, which is unfortunate. I would have liked to see Kabutoke get more use, but once again, Kabutoke, just like these cleaves and dismantles, if they were not being suppressed by Sukuna himself or Kusakabe, likely through the simple domain here, yeah, Kabutoke would have one-shot any of them anyway. So getting rid of Kabutoke just as quickly as it was introduced, makes sense. But yeah, I have no idea how they're going to beat Sukuna now. No idea. He's going to have to be actively stupid, or the merger has to happen. One of those two things. Either Sukuna has to be so unbelievably dumb that he lets himself get grazed just to see what it happens, see what it be like with the Executioner's Blade, or some other superior or relative force of Sukuna needs to be introduced into the narrative. Like a merger, like a Kenjaku control due to Akotsu or Takaba. Something has to happen, because there's no reasonable way that they're going to be able to beat Sukuna now. There's no reasonable way. I'm going to make a video trying to figure out a reasonable way. But with that being the case, sorry, I have been yapping for a minute and a half. I'm going to have to make a quick review for this one, because there's so much. I've talked way too much about character stuff, so there will be a quick review out. But if you somehow made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor. If you made it all the way to the end, leave the judge's mistake. The judge's mistake in the comment section down below. I would like to thank you so much for watching. Remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do happen to have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also now become a member of the channel first. You can also become a member to the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the 40-minute live reaction to this very chapter. Now, I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.
I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, so Connor Plays, Redwell 4765, and Greyhound. I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, Demix LND, and Igneal. I'd like to give a honka thank you to our $7 member, Autumn's Morning Lazo. And I'd like to give another gargantuan thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchio, Joaquin, Idem Okami, and China Doll 09. I'd like to give a thicker than a snicker thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give another thicker than a frozen jar of peanut butter thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.